All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. I do apologize again for the last time as I cut it short because I used the wrong account. It was on a 30-minute, not an unlimited. So here we go. All right. So as we talked about on the last one, we're going to start off where we left off the last time, which was we were in kind of a discussion with someone about they and a few other people worked out at F45. And for those that might not know, F45 is more of what we call high intensity style training. Um, it's kind of designed for the masses. It's not designed really for the individual. Um, and the problem that comes into that, what we find, like we were talking about, is that is where we usually will find that people literally out-train their nutrition program, meaning that calorically, they're not eating enough to justify what they have outputting. But then the other problem that we saw in those things is they're not using the energy pathways that is best suited for burning fat. So kind of a recap, remember we have three energy pathways: ATP, which is up to the first 45 to 60 seconds. We have then a glycogen state, which is up to a little bit to 2 minutes, a little bit over. And then after that, we're in an oxidative state. So again, to kind of break that down, think of the power lifter strongman that's in that 1 rep max, lift something big, put it back down. They're always in that ATP range. The individual that's doing supersets, drop sets, bodybuilding style, and even in some cases circuit style, we're in that glycogen range because we're in that target range between 125 to 150. And then, think about the oxidative state is that runner, or, and again, a lot of cases, the F45 person, they're in that 145 and above range for a majority of the time. Even when they are been doing it for a while, their cardiovascular threshold improves, but they're still outside of the ranges that are optimal for burning glycogen. So, Jake, you want to kind of recap again? You were talking about what precision does different, and then why do we do with precision the way we do it?
Yeah, so the biggest question you have to ask yourself when training is am I in the right target heart rate? And the best way to find that out is you take the number 220, subtract your age, and then times it by 70%. So me being 32, I would be around 131 beats per minute. So keeping that in mind, we try to keep our training and structure with that. So our breaks are a little bit longer. That way you can recover, but we're lifting heavier weights for a certain amount of sets, whatever it may be. It changes week to week. But, I'm not running you through, and we're not running, well, our trainers in general, we don't run you through 100 exercises back to back to back. It's usually a superset or a monster set, which is 3 exercises back to back to back. Then we rest. So with that, we try to keep the rep ranges between, anywhere from 10, sometimes up to 20 reps, but that will keep you in that target heart rate. Now, if I have you at 100 reps and I give you a time in order to complete it, odds are your heart rate's going to jump over where it should be, where you're not really tapping into stored body fat. Now, you're tapping into that ATP, which is not what you're looking for if you're looking for more fat loss long term.
Right. And then, remember too, like I said, is as a new beginner and then someone who starts working out, obviously your threshold is going to increase. So, a good example would be is if you are on a treadmill on an incline and at say 6 degrees at 3 miles an hour, and when you first start out, your heart range is around that 135 to 140, but then after like 2 weeks, it's now dropped down to like 125. It's because your threshold is improved. But also remember, there's anaerobic and aerobic threshold. So you can be in shape cardiovascular wise, but really out of shape on weights. And then you can be in shape with weights, but out of shape aerobically by running. So again, you always got to remember you got to train for what you're training for. So if you're trying to run for marathons, then obviously you're going to have to run and do that type of training. If you're someone who's trying to burn fat, increase bone density and muscular density, then you're going to want to spend more time with the weight. You know, Again, the same thing happens even when you move up in weight. Let's say you go from squatting 100 pounds up to 200 pounds. your threshold, your anaerobic threshold is going to have to adjust to that because you're under a new load. So then again, you're going to have to adjust your time because again, you might be spending a little bit too much time or increase your rest time so you can allow your heart rate to get back into the right range to burn fat because your heart rate will climb faster because you're not used to lifting at that type of weight. So, um, so we wanted to touch on that part. And then we also, Hannah, you want to touch on again, we kind of talked about keto and carnivore diets and staying. And again, when we get into the CrossFit world, and I think even in the F45 and the one other one, I cannot think of it off the top of my head. Been around forever too, but
Orange
they want to
Theory?
be in the, Orange Theory. Yep, you nailed it. Thank you. They want to be in that keto and now the ever popular carnivore diet. So you want to explain those two type of diets and what the outcome of that situation is going to be.
Yeah, keto and carnivore, I think a lot of times they're kind of interchanged as if they're the same thing, and there is a stark difference. So keto is going to be focused more on higher fat sources, typically animal sources, very, very low carbohydrate. Usually the carbs are coming just from vegetables in the diet, so less than 30 grams of carbs and moderate protein, whereas carnivore is going to be very high protein. The fat is going to generally just come from the meat sources and little to no vegetables, carbs at all. And for some reason, those diets are really appealing to people who generally are doing those F45 Orange Theory type of workouts for some reason, even though the intensity of that training, the energy source that you need to be available during that training it doesn't match up with the keto and carnivore diet. Those diets aren't allowing the body to have that glucose ready to use. So it's I mean you get through the workout, you will finish, but you're not really going to be seeing the results that you want long term.
Right. And like I kind of said in the last episode, those things might work for someone that's excessive in body fat for a while because they literally have like a storage unit or a spare tank of gas that the body will tap into. But the leaner that you get and the more efficient that you get with food and the more insulin sensitive you become, the less likely that plan's going to work because again, you're not giving yourself the rest time in order for your body to get back into the rest. And remember, it's about a 2-hour process for fat to be converted over and into glycogen for the glucose state, to whereas if you just had carbohydrates in the system, it's an immediate energy source. There is no time to do that. It's like a matter of 2 minutes. I know even in some of my training when I've been very low caloric deficit diets for bodybuilding shows, and I'm at a very lean body fat percentage, I could literally feel if I rested long enough, I could feel the conversion over of my pancreas dumping to all of a sudden I would feel like I'm lightheaded and dizzy to I like all of a sudden had more energy that I knew what to do with. And now that was a short supply because it only lasted me through that set. But as long as I gave myself the rest time, that body had enough time to do the conversion over very quickly. So now I know that the argument is while I'm in ketosis, yes, that is correct. If you are in truly ketosis, then your body can be in that. But again, to ultimately be in, to utilize that pathway, that's why you want to be in that steady state cardio program under 110 beats per minute in your heart rate, somewhere between 100 and 110. Your lifting ranges want to be in that 5 to 8, 8 to 10 rep range, and you want to be at that 90-second to 3-minute mark rest time because your body needs that rest time to let it recover to keep yourself at that ketosis state and not tap into muscle glycogen or anything else like that that would have to do that conversion. So that was kind of the recap where we did, we kind of got left off with. I was trying to push through it fast enough, but I did get a little left off. So now tonight, what we really wanted to cover is, and it's funny because I said this, I wanted to go back into last year. I know it. I think it's like, I know I can't remember what part, but I remember making a statement. I'd have to go to my social media, but that Ozempic And these would be the next disaster program when it came to comparing it to does the God, I'm gonna lose it again. The
HCG.
shot. Yeah, HCG diet,
HCG.
500
Yeah.
calorie diet, that people weren't going to do it right, that it wasn't going to get prescribed right. And it's not the drug, it's the protocols that are causing people to be unhealthy. It's the protocols that are causing people to gain all the weight back because they weren't being taught how to use it correctly from the very beginning. So that's what we're going to kind of start on tonight. And so to kind of recap, I'm going to let Hannah, you want to go over kind of what are the brand pharma names and then what are the brand peptide names?
Yeah, so Ozempic and Wegovy, the peptide version of that is semaglutide. Manjaro peptide version of that is tirzepatide, which generally, at least within precision, we've seen better results with tirzepatide because it has an extra mechanism that semaglutide does not. But I think in the market, these are all kind of, again, they're interchanged. People don't really realize exactly what they're taking and what the medication is actually doing. So hopefully something we're doing well at Precision is actually educating on what's happening in the body. Why is this medication even effective in the first place?
Right. And then Wegovy has been approved for weight loss, but I'm going to address that here in a second on what the steps were with that. And then Jake, why don't you go ahead and talk about real quick, because we're going to cover it down the road, but we'll just kind of set the platform of what you've heard on the floor and what you've kind of heard when it comes to using these when it comes and working out, or how it induces people not to work out.
Okay, so for those of you who know nothing about these drugs, when taken, and this is all depending on the person, their situation, when you take these shots, it's common to have nausea. So people, they're already off the bat, they don't want to eat. Now, the problem is you have clinics that are giving these shots out and not advising their patients how to properly take it and what should be taken in conjunction with it and what should be done with it, which is number one, nutrition. I know, it's hard to eat if your appetite's not there, but after usually 24 hours after your shot, your appetite will pick up. Now, the problem is people are not getting themselves in a good schedule of eating. And of course, they're not eating the right things. So what's happening is they're seeing now, and I forgot the study, I wish I had it with me, but it was like close to 70% of people on the shot are actually losing more bone density and muscle versus body fat. Now, the reason being is you cripple someone's stomach and their appetite, they're not going to eat. Without your food, your protein, your carbs, your fats, you're not going to be able to fuel your body, number one. You're not going to be able to recover, number two. And then usually if you're not eating, most people don't have the willpower to work out. When you're weight training and putting your body under stress, you build bone density. So you're losing all these things when you're just taking this shot. You're not following a proper nutrition program and you're not exercising at all. So you're seeing a lot of people lose the good things and they're holding on to the bad things. And like Jamie touched on, once they're done with the shot and they're taken off of it, not one habit has been changed. So sure, they lost the weight initially, but guess what happens? It goes right back on because the habits were never changed while they were on the shot.
Right. And so I'm going to want to go back in history a little bit because I'm going to tell you what this sounds exactly like. A client who goes in and he's being told that he's a diabetic and is an insulin dependent diabetic, and the doctor has no conversation with him about the type of diet that he's on or what he's been eating or anything like that, and tells him to dose himself accordingly with insulin based on the way that they eat. Don't change the way that you're eating. Don't change the fact you eat sugary foods. Don't change any of that. Just give yourself more insulin dependent upon how you eat. Again, insulin used properly, like the way bodybuilders use it, they get very lean and they pack on a lot of muscle because they eat properly to using it, and they use very low doses. I mean, 2 units at the max. We've seen I've helped people go from 80 units of insulin in a day down to 20 by giving them carbohydrates and showing them how to eat correctly. And yet doctors have no conversation with this. So again, we have to, what this discussion about is to, one, discuss what the skinny shot is, how it came to market, discuss the benefits of it, but also talk about why it's gotten a bad rap. And is it really a bad medication, or is this thing really good when used appropriately? Because I'm going to tell you at the end of this, you will have all the evidence of why this is something very beneficial to people, whether it is that you are pre-diabetic, whether it is that you want to lose some weight, or whether it's someone like me and my wife and a lot of people that we have that are entrepreneurs that live in very high stress environments. And no matter how clean we eat, no matter what we do, our insulin is being dosed because of our adrenals are being hit so hard throughout the day, and how you can biohack the body by doing it that way. So when it came to market, when it first came to market and went there, Ozempic was the first one to market, and it was never designed for weight loss. It was designed for diabetic and pre-diabetic individuals. It was designed to be done one time a week instead of daily, multiple times a day, because it acts like a extremely long acting insulin. So it's going to bring down your glucose, your A1C, and your fasted insulin number. It was never designed, until the Kardashians started using it, to be used as a weight loss drug. Again, they have concierge doctors. Some of them are considered what we call biohackers, and I'm considered somewhat of a biohacker. And I use things in a different way to biohack and unlock the system of the body in a smart and intelligent way. Well, then people had lost weight and they lost a lot of weight and did that. Again, if you look at their lifestyle, they live in a lot of stress. So again, they're controlling insulin spiking. Again, when insulin is present, it doesn't matter how insulin got there. It doesn't matter if you eat a tablespoon of honey, or if it doesn't mean that you just got cut off by someone on the highway, or you just got done yelling at someone because you didn't like what was going on, because that's an adrenal dump and insulin is now present. When insulin is present, the body's ability to burn fat goes away. It spikes estrogen, again, which is why people that eat high sugary diets and everything has so much estrogen dominance in them, especially in females, is going down that pathway. So again, to kind of go back, remember, Ozempic and that stuff was never made to come to market as a weight loss drug. It was made that way because movie stars and everybody else got behind it and started wanting to call it a cool name, and it got that name and it stuck. Now, Wegovy came to market because of the fact, as in any medication, the good ones, they improve with years because they have more clinical data behind it, can show, and they can improve the medication and make it even better. So Wegovy came to market, and it is the first weight loss approved drug, again, when used appropriately. But again, just like what I talked about with doctors and insulin, it was never designed to fix people's poor eating habits. It was never designed so you could still continue to eat like a trash panda and use this drug to suppress your appetite. That's like saying to me, why don't you go eat 120 milligrams of Adderall a day, suppress your appetite down, don't eat anything, and now that is a weight loss drug. No, that's not what it was designed for. But Adderall at 120 milligrams, Adderall at 60 milligrams has even an Adderall on 30 milligrams to some people has a significant impact on their ability to eat. They have to make themselves eat on that. So again, it's not the drug, it's the choice of the people that are doing it, or the miseducation of how they're told to use it, or they're using it in a way that was never really designed to be used for, right? So again, like what Jake was talking about, and I'll let Hannah kind of take this part over, what happens when the body is at too low of a caloric state for too long?
Yeah, so regardless of whether you're on these medications or not, when we're under fueling for too long, too consistently, the body will adapt to only need that amount of fuel. So if you're someone who needs 1,800 calories just to maintain where they are, and you're eating 1,000 calories, whether that's due to appetite suppressant from one of these medications or from, just under eating over a long period of time, regardless, the body's going to figure out that it's only going to get 1,000 calories, and it will adapt its functions to only, to basically only do the things that are going to keep the body alive. So burning fat, building muscle, those are not essential functions. So when we suppress the appetite and cut down too long, the body will kind of dig itself into a deeper hole. Now, I mean, yes, you have to be in a caloric deficit in order to drop weight, whether you're on these medications or not. But when that deficit is too big, then it becomes a problem.
Right. And I love how you said that too, because the reality is the body can't distinguish which individual that person is going to be. We know the extreme side of undereating. If I said what you consider bulimia is a form of diet, people are like, no, that's extreme. People don't eat. That's starving. All right. So we know what the extreme side of undereating is, as an example. We all know what overeating does because we can see it in the scale, the way we feel, and we can feel it in our waistline. So we know those two thresholds, but what's the middle ground, right? But you look at the dieter who's been told, well, you just need to burn more than what you take in, but nobody's ever set the parameters on them for them. Or you look at the busy person, whether they're a parent, whether they own a company, whatever that might be, is if you ignore, like what Hannah was saying, that ghrelin signal, that signal that comes out and says, I am hungry, and you ignore that, then you have trained your body to that it will no longer send a signal out. An example of that would be is, let's say that your normal job that you were working for a long time was 9 a.m. That's when you had to be at work. So you got yourself used to waking up at 7:30 to be out the door. Now all of a sudden you got a new job, and now you have to be at work at 7 a.m. And now you got to get up at 5 a.m. Well, at first it sucks. But after about a week or two, your body acclimates to getting up at 5 o'clock, and now getting up at 5 o'clock just becomes routine because you've now adapted to a new sleeping schedule. Your body's used to it. Remember, the body is just a gigantic computer system. It is highly intelligent and is making changes and choices well before you ever know anything. It's designed to make decisions so you don't ever know the impact of your decisions. Example of that is a heart attack is not the first sign of a heart problem. It's the last sign. It means you've been ignoring everything for too long, and now this is the repercussions of that situation. So that's one of the issues with it, is that people think, well, I'm not hungry, so I don't have to eat. And by the way, that's what I've always been told, burn more than what you take in, so I'm fine. No, you're just training your body to now just be a fat storer, not a fat burner. So that's also the big part. And another big side of that is people always talk about macros. It's macros, macros, macros. But what's more important, macros or micros? Because if you're not eating, then you're definitely not hitting macros. But more importantly, you're not hitting micronutrients. And that's what's really big. And if you're not getting enough fluid retention in, then you're not getting minerals and everything else in. So you're just really setting yourself up. What I'm circling around to is you're setting yourself up for disaster when you stop it, because you literally turned your body into a fat storing machine that is depleted of micronutrients, that is depleted of minerals and vitamins that's essential to the body for it to function. And now you're going to go back to, because once the medication wears off, your hunger is going to be through the roof, and you've learned no good eating habits. You're going to go back to the way, or continue with the way that you're eating, and the weight's going to come on tenfold, which is exactly going back to what was happening with the HCG diet. People were restricting themselves down to 500 calories, barely eating something, and then when they came off the medication, their appetite ramped up, and they went back to eating pizza, drinking beer, burgers, chicken wings, and anything else, and the weight came all back because they don't like the way that chicken and rice, chicken and sweet potatoes, eggs and oatmeal, that's boring, that's bland, I don't like it, but that's the outcome of it. So that's kind of why the medication has gotten such a bad rap to it, is because of that. And then, Jake, what he had pointed out, not only that, but when they're on a medication, now they're still actively in the gym doing 30, 40 minutes of cardio, and they're still lifting, doing that, just digging a deeper and deeper and deeper hole. which is like, if you go back to history and HCG diet, what do they tell you not to do? Work out. Don't work out. Don't do anything. Do a 500 caloric diet. Do this drug, you lose weight. To me, like, the first time somebody says the best way to lose weight is don't work out and eat 500 calories, I'd run the opposite direction. So, so Hannah, why don't you, hang on a second. I will go into first, the wrong way of starting the diet. I'll let Hannah take over with the way that Precision starts, because she really heads this program up on this side. But the wrong way of starting this is the fact, like what Jake had brought up. You walk into your med spa, your med spa is all of a sudden, hey, have you heard of Ozempic or semaglutide or any of these things? We can give it to you right now. No, because there's certain things you need to make sure that you do before you ever take it. Because if you don't, you might end up being the one who was in the hospital for 3 days throwing up consistently. Again, another way you don't start is just going off somebody else's experience. Just going, well, it worked for my friend Susie or my buddy Bill over here, and so I'm going to jump on it. Again, there's steps that you need to take before you jump onto that. So what I'm kind of saying is, do your due diligence to educate yourself, and I think you should educate yourself no matter what you start. If you recommended a supplement, you should educate yourself. If you're recommended a type of workout, you should educate yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's your body and your health that is being impacted. And you want to make sure that no matter where the information is coming from, including myself and us at Precision, educate yourself. If you have questions, we are black and white. There's no gray with us. We'll tell you exactly what you need to know and why you're doing it. And sometimes we over-explain it. But we want to make sure that everybody gets onto the program, what they're doing, whether it's working out, whether it's nutrition, whether it's supplement, whether it's peptides, hormone replacement, injectables, IV therapy. We want to make sure that that person is informed and overly informed of what they're doing. So Hannah, why don't you just go ahead and start off, like, what are the steps that we take at Precision for people to get into jumping on to any one of these GLP, GLAs?
Yeah.
Medications.
So yeah, we have quite a process, because like everything you just said, this is something that should be taken seriously. It's not something that you start on a whim just because you're frustrated with your diet. It's really, there's a lot of conversations that have to be had. So number one, we need to make sure we're all on the same page with what your medical history is, because there are contraindications where this may not be appropriate for you. And we want to make sure that there's nothing that would interact with these medications. So first, getting all your medical history, that's number one. Number two, we do require quite a bit of lab work, because again, some people are not good candidates for this. And we want to know from a blood sugar standpoint, especially from blood sugar and liver enzymes, we want to know, where are we starting, so that we can retest and see, is this moving the needle from an internal perspective? We can see visually physical changes, but we're also very tightly monitoring blood work, so we can see, are we pushing someone into a hypoglycemic state, which that's a problem as well. So getting that blood work, step one or step two. I always recommend clients getting started on their nutrition program and getting solid with that before starting any of these medications, because let's say, majority of people, I'd say 95% of the people that we see are already under eating. So I'm giving them all of this food. I need them to eat. I need to improve their metabolism. If we're adding an appetite suppressant on top of that, it's going to be really discouraging, because you're not going to be able to get in what your body actually needs. So getting solid with your nutrition program. And for some people, if they know they want to start this medication, we can build their program around that, knowing this medication is going to come on board. But I've worked with people for a long time who decided that then they wanted to start this medication, and we can work it out for them as well. So we the right way to go about it is, like you said, Jamie, having a conversation about it, being really informed, looking into why you may or may not be a good candidate for it. And then whether you're getting it through us or somewhere else, just looking at the providers. What are they doing to support you? Um, are they educating you on how to do the injections yourself? Are they doing the injections there? It's just gathering all the information that you don't know you need until you start to have those conversations.
Right. And again, kind of going back a little bit, this is one of the issues I had on fat burners too. It's why I never in years have started anybody on a fat burner, because the majority of fat burners have appetite suppressants in them. And I know, Jake, you can touch on that from the supplement world, that those are always one of the biggest pushers in the supplement world.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone lives in town. Everyone's heard the ads for the Commander and Blisco packs. They've changed names several times. The problem with it is it's easy to catch on with a lot of people. You take the product, you feel it instantly, you feel good, you have an appetite, that's being suppressed. And you may have some decent results within the first 30 days. But we're going to go back to what I said, like earlier. Nothing's changing with the diet. If you're not changing diet, these are going to be short-term results. So it's no different than the shot in terms of that aspect. You're taking it, no habits are being changed. So you get that immediate, I have it now effect, but as soon as you stop buying that product and taking that product, nothing's changed, and you're going to pack that weight back on. And most of the time, people pack on more than they were before, because now, like Jamie touched on, when you get off that drug or off that fat burner, your appetite is ravenous. So you go right back to your old habits.
Right. And not to mention the stress that it puts on the body and your adrenals, because with those fat burners, what are you putting in? They're like, yeah, you're suppressing your appetite, but you're also getting a lot of energy because there's a ton of caffeine in them. So now you're stressing and your adrenals and putting yourself into adrenal fatigue. And I know this was just kind of brought up in a meeting that I just had with a couple of people, like, is adrenal fatigue kind of a real thing? It's like, well, in big pharma and white coat doctor world, no, it's not an accepted term. In holistic medication and preventative health and preventative age management world, and you go to these conferences that thousands of doctors go to, is absolutely a real thing. So, these are things you got to think about. And no matter which way you go about it, wouldn't it be nice to start out and see what you can do on your own and how your body can respond on your own, just through diet and exercise, by learning out the foods that work best with your body, learning how to manage your stress a little bit better, learning how to work out to get the results that you want, so you're not dependent upon any medication or any supplement long term. Now, they can be used as a tool to push you through plateaus. Yes, they can be used as a tool to move the needle when blood work shows that, yeah, you're a great candidate for it. But again, wouldn't it be nice to know what you can accomplish on your own first and foremost, and then use these as a tool to finish the job? Because I know we have some clients, and I know one of them's on here right now, who has used both sides of it very well, and has been off of the medication for well over a year. And it's funny because I remember telling this person they're going to end up probably weighing about 130 pounds. And they just looked at me and said I was insane. And I'm pretty sure that she's been hanging around that weight for a good 6 months plus. So, and she has more freedom in her nutrition than she's probably had in her life, and been able to keep this. So again, when it's used appropriately and the person's educated appropriately, it can have a profound impact on your results. But it's all got to start, like what Hannah said. It's got to start with nutrition. You've got to learn new behaviors. You got to learn new habits. You got to learn how to train the right way for you and your circumstances. And you got to know what to pay attention and when to pay attention to. And like what Hannah was bringing up, you got to make sure you get a full clinical picture, no matter what medication you're getting ready to go on. I've talked about thyroid before, about how they'll just pull TSH and T4 and make a decision on a medication. You don't have a full clinical picture to make an educated decision on that. Is that the right thyroid medication for you? So if you're not getting what we say, like, again, what's the wrong way to start? You don't get blood work done at all. Not only do you not know if you're a good candidate, but you're also not even measuring to see what your progress is. Let's say you are in that pre-diabetic range. Let's say you do have that 6.1 A1C and you have that 15 insulin. How do you know it's improved if you never have a starting point or a baseline to go with? You don't. And then you're on the medication and then they pull it for whatever reason that they do. And then the next thing you're having complaints and that's why they pull it. But you don't know what the starting point was. You don't know if they made the situation worse or they made the situation better. And then what are the side effects, even if it is better? So you got to make sure that you get a full clinical picture. Like we like to pull fasted insulin. We like to pull A1C. We like to get glucose. We also like to pull lipase because that tells you whether or not if you're going to get sick on it and where we need to start with it. So there's definitely some factors on why you need to ensure that you go through the steps and the protocols properly before you just go jumping on a medication like this. And again, that's why I feel, it's got such a bad rap right now because so many people ran and got the stuff from med spas that didn't do the right work. They got it from their own doctors that didn't pull the right labs. They didn't educate them first. Again, kind of repeating myself, they talk to them the same way that they do about insulin. Just take more insulin, don't change your diet. Take this peptide or take this medication. It's a new one. It's very long-acting insulin, but don't change the way you eat. They don't tell you that you need to be eating enough. It's a huge disservice to people, especially when people are coming out of pocket for the cost this stuff costs sometimes. It's a huge disservice not to be educating people the right way with it. The other part I wanted to kind of go into on it was some of the side effects. I kind of covered that. We have covered the majority of that, I should say. It is, you're not eating, you're not hydrating. And then when people do see the weight loss, it's causing them not to go to the gym, causing them not to do the cardio. And again, if part of your weight loss program is not exercising because you're in such a low caloric deficit, you're absolutely in the wrong direction. And yes, you might be seeing results now, but I promise you your 3 to 5 year results and what you're going to have to fix for the next year because of those choices is going to be huge. It's going to have a lot of impact. And we've talked about this peptide a lot about the fat side, but again, I kind of hinted towards it. This peptide works wonders for people that are in great shape. I'm myself, 50 years old. I use a very small dose. I'm around 10 units versus a clinical dose of 50 to 60 units. And I use it because of my stress levels. And as much as, I do cold baths, I do infrared sauna, I do journaling, I do meditation, I do everything. But, the stress of the company and being responsible for the livelihood of the employees, and then also ensuring that our clients have a place to come to all the time, that's just not a stress that's going to go away. So I use that. And again, like I talked about, repeating myself, it doesn't matter where insulin comes from. It doesn't matter if you ate a tablespoon of honey or because you're having an extremely stressful day, insulin is present. When insulin's present, we talked about that side. So again, you can kind of biohack the body like I talked about and use this. So if you are someone that is even really lean, again, what's the first step? Make sure that you're calorically eating up to par. Make sure that you're not out training your dietary program. Make sure that you get a full clinical picture, get all the blood work panels needed to make a sound decision, get yourself educated, and make sure that you have a solid plan, not only going into it, make sure that you have a solid plan coming out of it. That would be the way that we would highly recommend doing this. So we have about 10 minutes left. I kind of want to open this up. And if anybody has questions, and I guess the last thing to say too, before I jump into the questions, we do a lot of services, more than I can even remember at this point anymore. But the one thing I wanted to point out is we do work virtually with people all across the world, all the way over into Europe. And so, if you feel like you have a pretty good grip on your nutrition, I would still highly recommend that you grab a consultation with Hannah. Maybe she can go through and point some things out. And yes, you might have a good idea about how to work out, but Jake writes some incredible workout programs that you can do in your own house, or you can even write them for you to do at your own gym. And it will give you a lot of insight and obviously it will teach you some things, because between him and me, there's well, shit, I've been in the gym since I was 15, so I'm 50, so do the math there. And Jake's been there's a lot of knowledge between us on this. So, I can guarantee you could definitely pick up some tricks from us on that side. But I'm going to open it up to questions. So if anybody has questions, you can raise your hand. You can unmute yourself. You can put it in chat, whatever you want to, however you want to go about it. But the floor is open to anybody that would like to ask a question.
Amy, I had someone message who couldn't be on this question about, do you wait? Let's make sure I read it correctly. Do you wait until you're at maintenance to come off these medications, or should you stay on it for longer than that? So basically, how long do you stay on these medications?
I think the best way to answer that way is you would stay on it until, like, at one, I feel like you've got a sound habits down. Like, you're not falling, like, we always do well when things are calm, but then our old behaviors come back when triggers happen. Let's say that you're an emotional eater, right? And something emotional happens and now you're binging on something. Because again, remember, when you come off that peptide, the hunger starts to come back. So if you start you find yourself that you haven't broken yourself of habits and triggers and going back to your old habits and triggers when doing it, that probably stay on a little bit longer than doing it. And then I'll use myself as a reference. I'm not coming off until my stress levels come down. So I'm going to be on it for a while. So, but, you can definitely, one thing you can do is you can come off of it after you feel like you've hit a maintenance and test the waters. And if you feel like things are starting to revert back, you can always go back on temporarily. So that's be the best way. And I just remember there's one thing I wanted to talk to when we're looking at panels. I've had this come up multiple times, but I just had it come up again, where two different scenarios. One, the client had a very good A1C of 4.8. They had a very good fasted glucose of 84, but they had an insulin of 19. Now remember, insulin above 12, it makes it very hard, makes it very hard, if not at all possible, to burn fat. Ideally, we would really want to see that insulin number under 6. So what's going on with this client? Why do they have such a good A1C, 90-day average of their insulin? Why they have a low glucose? Because they were running a very good diet, right? So they were very clean. They had carbs. They were training and doing anything. Problem is they were out training their diet. They were not calorically enough carbs going in based on the activity levels that they were doing. So then the body was having to dump the insulin. So then there was insulin being pumped at the point of time when they had the blood work done. So remember, blood work is a snapshot of the moment in time that you're doing it. Think about that. When you're in the hospital, you're near an emergency room, they don't pull your blood work. Well, they do pull your blood work. Sorry, I'm going to say it. I said that backwards. They pull your blood work. They give you medication or whatever that it is, vitamins or whatever it is. They don't go and say, all right, you're fixed. What do? They wait a couple hours. They pull the same panels. They retest to see what happened. So when you're doing your blood work, again, what if you ate cheesecake the night before, you go in and get blood work done and you got 120 glucose, but then you go back 4 days later when you're back to your keto diet or whether you're just clean eating again, and now you pull fasted glucose and now it's 84. Well, the first time, the cheesecake, your doctor's going to tell you you're pre-diabetic. You go back 4 days later, you're no longer pre-diabetic. So always got to look at that moment in time. Then the opposite side of that was just a very recent one, someone I've been working with. Her insulin is now down to a 2.2, but her A1C was a 5.5, which is still really good. Ideally, we really want to shoot for the range of about 4.8 to 5.1. Again, your doctor's going to tell you under 5.5 is good, but 5.5, and her average glucose was 111. So what was going on with this client? This client took what I said and decided she wanted to do things her way, because this is, again, triggers. She lost 60 pounds in the past. So she lost the weight. She learned some tricks, learned some do's to get the weight down. She's like, okay, I now got this way, and I know now while this works. But just because that's what worked to get you there isn't what works to keep you there. So she decided, I wasn't doing a lot of carbs, so I'm going to continue not doing carbohydrates. But she has a very good insulin number. Her insulin is like throwing a cup of carbs is like throwing kindling wood on a bonfire. She blows through it. But she's afraid to eat because she promised herself she's never going to go back to that 60 pounds. But now she's starting to notice other things, like her weight's coming around her waistline because she's not eating enough to do it. So this one, she's got enough carbohydrates through vegetables and stuff going in based on her low impact workouts, because she's doing Pure Bar and she's doing low impact elliptical, keeping the tools I said, keeping her heart rate low, especially in the morning. But her insulin is still pumping out a little bit more through the pancreas and stuff. So her numbers are up, elevated a little bit. So what we're doing with this one is to prove to her and to get her confidence back, I have her adding 60 grams of carbs 3 times a day. 3 times a week. And we're going to see how that goes. I'm going to start proving to her that her body can handle the carbs, and she's not going to go back to gaining that 60 pounds that she's deathly afraid of getting back up. So, that's what I was talking about, Han, to kind of answer your question. When can you come off? There's scenarios with that, because mentally you have to be on board to do it. And 2, you have to be confident that you're not going to fall back and no triggers. But just like this one, you can't use the medication as the crutch and the safety net to make sure that you're never going to go back to the way that you were. You did the work, and if you picked up the habits, you continue with the habits, you stick to the way that eating that you were taught to do and working out the way that you do, you will be successful, which is like the client I talked about who's successfully been off the medication for over a year and still kept the 130 weight. So, all right, anybody else got some questions? Somebody's got to have a question.
You
What else
covered
can
everything. Yes.
All right. So I guess I'll jump in. Water. Remember, water helps with insulin sensitivity. So staying hydrated is critical. That's a big thing. And again, it's just, I guess, to wrap this up, is you can't rely on anything when it comes to medications and supplements. Like you're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to be willing to give up some things in life. It doesn't mean you give them up forever, but you're going to have to learn to balance things out. That's why I always go back to, and I guess like an example, I told this lady that I was talking to her, I said, let's use this analogy. I said, you use the way that you paid off let's say you paid off $10,000 in credit cards, right? Because you're tired of being paycheck to paycheck. And so you learn these tools on how to budget your money and do everything to pay off the $10,000. And now that you got the 10 grand, you promise yourself you're never going to go back to putting that 10 grand in your credit card. So you continue living the very restrictive financial way that you were to get the credit card paid off. But now you're working your butt off and maybe even got a little bit of a raise, but you still will not spend more than what you're doing, because that's the tools you learn. And now you're starting to like, man, I haven't bought new shoes. I haven't even treated myself to a nice dinner. I haven't even treated myself to a nice vacation, because you're so afraid of going $10,000 in debt. So why don't you start off and kind of showing yourself, hey, I'm going to give myself a $400 a month budget. I can do $100 a weekend. I can do $200 every other weekend, or I could do $400 a month. But I know I have that $400, and over time you start to show and prove to yourself that I'm not putting 10 grand back on my credit. As a matter of fact, I'm still at a zero balance. because you learned how to budget your money. And if you can learn how to budget your nutrition with your goals and what it is, then you can go out and you can freely go have a date night with your significant other. If you're coming home on a Thursday night late and you're tired of eating chicken and potatoes for the day, or chicken and rice, and you want to order a burger for the night, then order the damn burger. The meal ain't going to cause you to go backwards, but you got to put yourself mentally and physically and health-wise in a place to be able to do that, the same way that you do financially, put yourself in a financial place to be financially create that financial freedom. So there is a question here, chat. All right. Question: as a professional, do you pull someone off tirzepatide after they achieve a certain level of fitness and diet and dedication? Yes, I would, as long as we've covered the basis of what does it look like. Like, I would like to, especially when we're still working with that client nutritionally or with on the training floor, I still want to kind of meet with them and see what are the long-term goals. Like, what is like with me, again, going back to myself, is the stress still as present as it was when you started? Yes. Okay, then let's keep you on it, but let's reduce down your dosage. Let's take you down, again, I have tried to bring myself back off, and again, I retested my blood and my numbers started climbing back again. And it was the insulin side. Again, I'm one of the ones, had a great A1C, had a good glucose. It was my insulin number that was 14. Once I got that sucker back under 6, I got freedom back on my plan again. So I know with my stress, I kind of have to keep it up. I have to keep it in there still. Now, again, if you've removed stress or you've moved things that were causing those numbers to climb, then I would say, yeah, let's test the waters and see how well you do with it. Let's keep an eye on you. Let's recheck your numbers in 45 days, see where they are. So if they have climbed a little bit, it hasn't gotten so far out of whack that it's anything crazy that can't be readily fixed again, and let's go about it that way. So, but I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, and also looked at as like, what are the goals for the next 90 days, 6 months, 12 months to make a decision on that. So that would be my answer to that. And then if someone goes on tirzepatide mainly for stress, how often do you run labs, check levels, and recheck for staying on or going off, and adjust the dosage? So we would originally pull the lab work, get it done. Again, we want to see the health history. We want to go through what does everything look like? What does your diet look like? What does your training look like? What does your cardio look like? These are all variables that can make an impact on the decision that we go with it. We got to look at everything as we do this. We just can't take it. So we would run that. We would, at that point in time, based on that blood work, make the decision on the dosage that we would do. And then we would go up and then tell you to trade up a little bit based on everything. And then we would pull that blood work again in 60 days, if not in 45. And then if we got you dialed in and everything's working, then we would monitor that and probably pull it again in another 90 days. Because usually you're on it anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks, sometimes up to 15 weeks, depending upon how much you're taking. It can last you all the way up to 15 weeks. And then again, before we would refill the bottle, we would have the discussion with you, what it is, how's everything looking, and what has fixed and what is not fixed. And then we would have a discussion with you on, do we continue with this? Because remember, this is a relationship. Like, we have to be in agreement with how we're moving forward. We can't just say you have to do this. And you guess, again, like I said at the beginning, you have to educate yourself. It's your decision. It's your health. It's your goals. You're the one who has to be comfortable with it. So all we can do is suggest and recommend, but it really comes down to you on whether or not that you agree. And part of that, I feel, is not, it's Precision's responsibility, but I think it's whoever you go with, it's their responsibility to gain your trust that you feel confident moving forward with us. If we've done that, then I think then we're in agreement on how we're all going to move forward. If it's not, then we need to figure out what the disagreement is, and to me, that is, we got to spend time further educating you and going more in depth on why we're doing what we're doing. Hope that answered that question. All right. Well, looks like we're going to wrap this up for tonight. So again, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Each time we do these, we keep getting bigger and bigger. So our purpose is to educate, educate, educate. There's so much misleading information out there in the online world. There's people that are filtered to hell and back. There's people that do things that you have no idea. These guys that are promoting themselves lean, you have no idea how many steroids they're doing, how much they're photoshopping, everything else. So again, you know, our job and our goal by doing these is to take my 20 plus years of doing this and everybody else's knowledge and that's on these platforms to educate you and bring to you what we feel and what we are seeing through precision as the best protocols and best way to get you in the best shape of your life, something that is healthy and something that is sustainable with or without the medication. That's the goal. So thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your night.